The Cosmic Lens, Episode 1, Night-Gaunts, by H.P. Lovecraft. Hello and welcome to The Cosmic Lens. Today we'll be looking closer at a short poem written by the 20th century's greatest practitioner of the classic horror tale, as Stephen King is quoted saying in 1995. Of course, we are talking about H.P. Lovecraft, and whilst he has many works we will be delving into today, we focus particularly on Night-Gaunts. Due to this poem being fairly short, we have actually included it within this recording here, and we'll play it for you now.
Out of what crypt they crawl I cannot tell, but every night I see the rubbery things, black, horned and slender with membranous wings. They come in legions on the north wind's swell, with obscene clutch that titillates and stings, snatching me off on monstrous voyagings to grey worlds hidden deep in nightmare's well. Over the jagged peaks of Thok they sweep, heedless of all the cries I try to make, and down the nether pits to that foul lake where the puffed shoggoths splash in doubtful sleep. But oh, if only they would make some sound, or wear a face where faces should be found.
This poem was first published under his full name, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, in the 26th of March 1930 edition of the Providence Journal, a daily newspaper for Providence, Rhode Island that still runs to this day. It's also been published under simply H.P. Lovecraft in the spring 1936 edition of The Fantagraph, a short-lived fanzine that ran from 1936 to 1945 with only 5 editions to its name. Another publication has the title changed to The Night Crawlers and was published in 1973 within the anthology Weirdies, 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 a horrifying concatenation of the super surreal or almost or not quite real, over 35 years after the author's death. They were all published from a sequence of 36 sonnets by Lovecraft named Fungi from Yuggoth, with Night-Gaunts being the 10th. Now, the poem details the beings known as Night-Gaunts and their abduction of an unnamed subject. Their appearance is described in some detail within the first few lines as rubbery things, black, horned and slender, with membranous wings. Also near the end, it seems that the subject laments about the lack of sound and facial features on the Night-Gaunts, specifically where faces should be found. This fits with further descriptions that these creatures make no sound whatsoever, even in motion, and although they are humanoid and possess the anatomy that suggests a face should be visible, it is missing completely. The perspective seems to be from someone stolen by the Night-Gaunts, as Lovecraft includes lines such as heedless of all the cries I try to make, and uses words like monstrous to describe what's happening to the subject. Their touch is described to both titillate and sting, which seems at odds with the negativity attributed to them in these lines, but can be attributed to many entities birthed within the genre of cosmic horror and Lovecraft's work. It is said that they come in legions, which could connote that these creatures are pack hunters and lack the intelligence or power to hunt individually. However, the use of the word legion in particular gives the impression that they are impossibly numerous, yet at least in this poem seem more mindless, with an instinctual knowledge of where to go and who to attack, as it seems they leave the shoggoths alone whilst on their journey. Night-Gaunts have also been further detailed in works such as The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, published in 1943 also by Lovecraft, and The Clock of Dreams, published in 1978 by Brian Lumley, who hinted that they may have mouths with which to suckle Yiptith's black breasts. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Although in further publications their intentions have been made somewhat clearer, in this poem it isn't described or elaborated at all, leaving readers to create a much more sinister, unbound view of these creatures. Considering they were originally inspired by a recurrent nightmare Lovecraft had as a young child of 7 or 6 years, this seems apt. The reason we know about this is he wrote about these nightmares in a letter to a friend, and though I cannot seem to find a full transcript of the letter, there are some odd sections in pieces of writing, such as this one here.
When I was 6 or 7, I used to be tormented constantly with a peculiar type of recurrent nightmare, in which a monstrous race of entities, called by me Night-Gaunts, I don't know where I got hold of the name, used to snatch me up by the stomach and carry me off through infinite leagues of black air over the towers of dead and horrible cities. The Night-Gaunts were black, lean, rubbery things with bared, barbed tails, bat wings, and no faces at all. Undoubtedly, I derived the image from the jumbled memory of Dora drawings, largely the illustrations to Paradise Lost, which fascinated me in waking hours.
Within the poem there are a few other references to creations of Lovecraft's. Thok is one of the twin moons, along with Thog, of a planet named Yuggoth or Lukoth, which is described as being the stopping off point for the Great Old Ones on their way to Earth. This planet is deemed to be located at the very edge of our solar system, and has actually been hypothesized to be Pluto, as that was discovered, I believe, during Lovecraft's life. It's specifically referenced in the 9th sonnet of the Fungi from Yuggoth series, and further detail within the novella The Whisperer in Darkness, which we will get to examine in further detail. Thok in particular, however, has little known about it other than the apparently fabled Gulric Zone, a green-lit cavern containing a putrid lake where puffed shoggoths splash. These shoggoths are also included in Lovecraft's works and are described as anthropomorphous, shape-shifting beings that were originally genetically engineered servants who rose up against their masters and drove them to extinction. These shoggoths are described in detail within another novella, At the Mountains of Madness, published in 1931, but are interestingly linked within this sonnet to the Night-Gaunts somehow. Perhaps the supposed torment that they subject this person to is also something that the shoggoths can do. This sonnet is the first in the contents of the Necronomicon, the best weird tales of H.P. Lovecraft commemorative edition, a book I have in front of me here. And before reading this poem, I was surprised that it was first. I've heard of many Lovecraftian tales such as The Shadow over Innsmouth, the Dunwich Horror, and, of course, The Call of Cthulhu, and was surprised when one of these was not considered the starting point for a large collection of his works. After reading and analysing this piece for this episode, however, I understand why this compendium has been published in this way. The Night-Gaunts poem perfectly captures the incomprehensible horror that Lovecraft oh so loves to write about, and helps the uneducated reader, such as myself, dip their toe into the world of cosmic horror that he so pioneered and popularized.
That was The Cosmic Lens. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to the next episode. Keep reading and keep writing.